All right, this video is tailored to those who are interested in theological writing, as I highlight 5 books that I love on the atonement. Welcome to Books and Big Ideas, what I'm reading, what I'm thinking about, with Joel Wentz. All right, so I'm going to try to go through 5 books in 5 minutes on the subject of the atonement. But for those who aren't familiar, the atonement refers to what Christians believe happened on the cross. And it really gets into the weeds on the kind of mechanics of how exactly did what happened on the cross kind of work. So this is kind of inside baseball, I guess, to Christian theology. Nevertheless, I think that maybe some of you would be interested in these books in particular. So I'm going to highlight them each, and I'm going in order of length. So I didn't rank these in terms of favorite to least favorite or anything like that. It's just the length of the book. I'm going to say a little bit about each one, why I like it, and go from there. So the first up is kind of a classic by now. This is Christus Victor by Gustav Allein. This is a survey of some historical atonement thinking. It's a great little book. It's really short, super readable, and one of his central arguments is really interesting in that, particularly the Lutheran kind of stream of theology coming out of the Reformation, he argues is actually kind of a reclamation of the victory of God theme that shows up in the earliest patristic writings in the first couple centuries. So it's really, I would argue, it's kind of an essential book if you want to get a good grasp of kind of historical theology of the atonement. The second book is called Recovering the Scandal of the Cross by Mark Baker and Joel Green. There's a lot I like about this book. This book is, of the ones I'm listing here, it's probably the one that's the most critical of what's considered a penal substitutionary atonement, if you are familiar with that terminology. So know that going into it, but it's a really excellent argument for recovering a more of a multifaceted imagery and imagination and metaphorical understanding of lots of different images, and particularly the scandalous imagery in the New Testament of what happened on the cross, and we're kind of recovering that. Hence the title, the scandalous notion of what actually happened beyond just the penal substitutionary framework that a lot of us have inherited especially in the West, the broadly Calvinist West. So that's a great book to add to kind of the conversation around atonement. And then this one is very similar in some ways, although I like it even more, I would say, is The Mosaic of the Atonement by Joshua McNall. I haven't seen this one get as much attention, and man, I wish it did, because it is so, so excellent. This one is similarly a recovery of more imagery and kind of more like thickening the language around when we talk about what happened on the cross. But his approach, the distinctiveness to McNall's approach in that book, is he argues for an interlocking, grander picture, mosaic, of all of these different images and models of victory and substitution and recapitulation and all of that. And that he argues that they interlock in really important ways, and we dare not lose any of them, or else we kind of impoverish our robust understanding of what we believe happened on the cross. So the Mosaic of the Cross, or Mosaic of the Atonement, excellent book. And then the wonderful Delivered from the Elements of the World by Peter Leithart. This is, the way Leithart writes in this book is, one of the endorsers describes it as a lightning strike. I mean, he is bold, he is provocative, and he carries this thematic coherence of that phrase being delivered from the elements of the world, which is a specific Greek phrase. And it's just a powerful argument in which he portrays the power of the elements in the world and what they do to us. It is kind of a Christus Victor-esque theme because of that sense of deliverance or delivery from. But he portrays the elements in such a powerful way, and then therefore also leading into why the cross, like why Anselm's question, why the God-man and then why the cross, Cur Deus Homo. He actually ends the chapter called Cur Deus Homo, calling back to Anselm's treatise on that, which if you're familiar with that. Anyways, I love Leithart's argument here and the way he formulates it and the way he builds up to it. It's powerfully written, but very, very academically rigorous at the same time. So I think Peter Leithart is an excellent theologian in general, but that book in particular, when it comes to atonement thinking, is a must-read, in my opinion. And then, finally, the wonderful, wonderful, wonderful Fleming Rutledge and her magisterial long book. This is the longest book easily in my pile here in this video. It's just simply called The Crucifixion. Gosh, this is this book doesn't need my praises. It got so many awards when it came out a few years back, but wow, it's well deserving of all of them, and it's probably, sentence for sentence, probably the best writing of these 5 books, although Lightheart vies for that spot too. But if you just want just good writing, Fleming Rutledge is masterful, and her imagery and her grasp of not only scriptures, but also cultural images, and she's a preacher, so she applies it to the reader in a really, really soul-stirring way. And it's also extremely thick and robust in its theological resources. So she just goes through lots of history and lots of traditional understandings, and kind of like McNall, interlocks them in a really, really, it builds into a very, very powerful, poetic, stirring, beautiful, grand, majestic image of the cross, which is actually on its surface such kind of an ugly thing. But that book is, again, a must-read in this topic. I really can't recommend it highly enough. So there you go. There's 5 books on the cross, on the atonement, on what Christians believe happened in that event 2,000 years ago. So I would dare to say, even if you're not a Christian, any of these books would probably be, but if you're interested in just reflecting on what happened on the cross and why it's impacted so much of history and so much of the globe, I think any of these books, you can't go wrong. So hope you enjoyed that. Thanks for watching.